Alex, welcome to the program. It's great to have you on today. You heard the president there describing these Iran talks at the weekend over the future of its nuclear program as having real progress, serious progress. Is that necessarily the case?
Great to be with you. You know, it's really difficult. Just in that short segment we just heard, the president said he might have good news or he might not. I mean, I do know that President Trump clearly does want a diplomatic solution, but I'm not sure how involved he is in the details of these talks. And the details, that's where it really matters. But look, the Iranians said the same thing on Friday after the talks, which were the fifth round of talks. They said that progress had been made, and now we have President Trump kind of echoing the same thing. So perhaps something has been moving forward. And let me just say this. It has been reported by the Iranian media that both the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and President of Iran Masoud Pezeshkian are traveling the next 2 days to Muscat in Oman to sit down and talk to their Omani facilitators about the proposals the Omanis have for Iran and the U.S. to get over this deadlock. And so perhaps there is something here in the pipeline that will be released in the next few days that might shake things up.
So, Alex, we're watching and waiting to see exactly what happens next here. But at a more macro level, walk me through the factors that are pushing the Iranian leadership back to the negotiation table. It seems like there is a real willingness on Tehran's side now to actually come back to the table and have a conversation about what the future of this long debated nuclear program is actually going to look like.
Right. Look, I mean, the short answer to that is Iran is hurting. Its economy is in a very bad place. The sanctions are basically killing the Iranian economy, and we can look at it in terms of the various metrics that exist. So the short answer is they need a deal because that's the only way they can have some of these sanctions, probably not all, but some of these sanctions can be lifted. So that's how Iran is coming to the table. And I think the fact that President Trump is seen by the Iranian side as someone who can deliver more on the sanctions relief, the Iranian side does look at President Trump as somebody who's commercially minded and someone perhaps who might, look at Iran as a potential country for American businesses to engage in. So that has seemed to created some excitement to some extent in Tehran, excitement that didn't exist, frankly, with President Biden when he was in the White House. So on a macro level, there is this Iranian hope that maybe diplomacy will work if Iran's red lines are respected, and obviously the American side want its red lines respected. But that is a question mark. What is America's red lines? President Trump says no Iranian nuclear weapon. That is his red line. Whereas some others in the Trump team are talking about no Iranian ability to enrich uranium on Iranian soil. So we have to wait and see if they can get over this one big hurdle, and it is one big hurdle.
Indeed. So, Alex, what is it going to take to bridge the gap between both sides on these so-called red lines?
Look, United States, President Trump matters the most. And President Trump has made it clear he does not want to see an Iranian nuclear weapon. And the Iranians are saying that's not something they're interested in. So right there, you should have enough space for an agreement. Now, even in the best case scenario, you're not going to have an agreement that is going to satisfy everyone in the longer term over the next few weeks and months. So the best thing that could happen is that they sort of agree on the basic framework before summer. And time isn't necessarily something that we have plenty of. So the best case scenario is you have an interim deal of sorts where the sort of basic framework is agreed upon. Again, it goes back to this issue of Iran enriching or not. From an American point of view, the Iranians will also insist on all sorts of sort of guarantees, if you will, in terms of the United States sticking to the deal when it comes to removing some of these sanctions. These are the two key issues. If they can reach some kind of a deal on this, as I said, that would provide an interim agreement, and then they need to go out there and really broaden the conversation because U.S. and Iran have plenty of issues that they need to sort of wrestle with to undo essentially 46 years of bad blood if they are serious about moving in the direction of normalizing relations.
Alex, one of those major issues that you're speaking about is, of course, Israel. In the background of these talks, we've seen fresh reports emerging that Israel is preparing for what could be potential strikes on Iranian facilities as soon as this summer if these talks break down. Is that something that market investors should be assessing as well, perhaps even pricing in?
I mean, there are a couple of things that Israelis obviously have their own concerns. They're an independent state with sovereign right to decide what is best for them. But end of the day, Israel, even if it decides to take action alone against Iran, has to worry about Iranian retaliation. And that's where the United States is needed by the Israelis. So we've seen over the course of last year that Iran has a capacity to strike Israel with its ballistic missiles and drones and so forth. So the Israelis, thinking along those lines, I am guessing, and that's all I can do. I'm guessing that they're still better off staying close to the Trump administration and hope that the Trump administration can get to a point where they can put the brakes on Iran's nuclear program. So it ends up being what Iran claims it to be, a civilian one, with IAEA inspectors still remaining on place in Iran, keeping their eyes on what Iran is doing. And obviously, if that is something that can be achieved, perhaps that would alleviate some of those serious concerns that Israel has about Iran's intentions when it comes to its nuclear program.
What do you make of the Trump administration's current relationship with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel? It seems like this is an important relationship still, but on rocky ground, Alex.
Yeah, no, look, it's an important relationship going back to the foundation of the State of Israel to 1948. And one shouldn't underestimate the sort of closeness between these two countries because it's really essentially resting on decades of work that both sides have invested in this relationship. That said, nobody can deny the fact that clearly something isn't exactly right when it comes to relations between this Trump White House and Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel. So clearly, and we see this, we are hearing this, there are a lot of issues, like including the future of Hamas in Gaza and the potential starvation in Gaza that are of a serious concern to the Trump administration. So yes, good relations in terms of the historical context, but right now, as you put it, we might be on rocky territory for now.